حلمنا نسخي حلم ورورتك عنكوتانا سخي نايما يتعامتك هلاوينا عب هلاوي خيوز مركوس عدنا متاعينا بآخيوز غلس.
This is reflection on Eritrea's achievements on gender equality that was organized by the Permanent Mission of Eritrea and the United Nations country team under the theme Empowering Women, Eritrea's Achievements and Experience during the 59th session of the Commission on Status of Women in New York in 2015. The side events on the empowerment of women was the second side events organized by the Permanent Mission of Eritrea and the United Nations country team. In September 2014, a side event was organized to share Eritrea's experience in the successful achievements of the three health-related Millennium Development Goals, MDG 4, 5, and 6. Here's the full video coverage of the event.
On behalf of the Eritrean Mission and the UN country team who have jointly organized this important side event entitled Empowering Women, Eritrea's Achievements and Experiences, I would like to thank all the participants, and we really appreciate your presence. Among us, we have very distinguished guests and panelists. My sister and friend, Ms. Christian Omotoni, UN Residence and Humanitarian Coordinator for Eritrea. She is also the co-chair of this event. She's on my left side. And we have Ms. Christine Musisi, Regional Director of UN Women, Eastern and Southern Africa. She's also on my left side. And we have also Tekat Mikael, President of the National Union of Eritrean Women. She's on my right side. And the panelists will be introduced properly by the co-chair, Christine, when we are going to deal with the agenda item. And she is reminding me, also Ms. Raquel Loganas, Policy Advisor on Gender Mainstream, UNDP, BPPS, Solidarity and Goodwill message will be also delivered in the first session, then we go to the panelists. But before we go to the thing, just to contextualize the discussion, I want the participants to really, when they talk about Eritrea, three factors they have to take into consideration. As you can see on the map over here, I don't know, my thing is showing you, Eritrea is located at the Red Sea coast and with 1,200 kilometers of coastline. As you can see, it's a choke point. It goes to Suez Canal and Bab al-Mandab, Yemen. So you have to understand, also we do have 300 islands, more than 300 islands. So people have to conceptualize everything whenever they discuss. This is a factor. Number two, they have to really understand Eritrea is endowed with all types of natural resources. 60% of the landmass is gold, copper, zinc, nickel, granite. Soon, within the next 3-4 years, Eritrea will be one of those countries, will be number 3 or number 4 in the world in terms of production of potash. So the natural resource, the strategic location has to be understood. And we have a capacity of producing 80,000 metric tons of fish with no damage to the environment. We're just only producing not more than 10,000 metric tons. So you can see the development perspective. Last but not least, you have to also, when you talk about Eritrea, not only the strategic location, but also the natural ways, but the people. And only the people we have to talk. It is 50% Christian, 50% Muslim government, society. The government is absolutely secular, and it is a country and a people who say, yes, I can do it, yes, we can. That is the mentality of the entire population. Without this involvement of the population, there is no way we can really develop. In fact, the harmony between the society and the Christians and the Muslims is so much, embedded in the culture and the mentality of the people. Let me give you just one example. You will see a mosque here, a church here, in between a bar and a nightclub. That's how much tolerant. No sheikh will protest, no priest will protest. That is the reality. So without any further ado, I now have to move into today's main topic, empowering women in Eritrea, achievements and experiences. And I invite now my sister, Ms. Christine Musisi, Regional Director for UN Women, Eastern and Southern Africa region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Girma Asmeron, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Eritrea to the United Nations, Ms. Christine Mutoni, UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator, and Ms. Teker Tesfa Mikhail, President of the National Union of Eritrean Women, my colleagues in the UN, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here on behalf of Ms. Lakshmi Puri. You might be wondering, what I look like and what the picture is saying, but I bring you greetings from her. And she could not make it due to unavoidable circumstances. But I'm really also privileged to be at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, 2015 presents us with a big opportunity moment to make a great leap forward in the achievement of gender equality and women's empowerment within our lifetime, given the confluence of the Beijing Plus 20 review, the last mile in the negotiations around the standalone goal on gender within the Sustainable Development Goal framework, and I'm hoping that all of you will be supporting this standalone goal as we move towards September, and also the review of the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325. Furthermore, there is no other sub-region that better confirms that gender equality and women's empowerment are a prerequisite, a means, and an objective for the uplifting of entire societies than sub-Saharan Africa. It is right to say that progress to date, captured in such frameworks as the MDGs, was partly driven by improved education for girls and by an improvement in women's socioeconomic status, which may be the most effective prevention weapon against maternal mortality and HIV and AIDS. Nearly half of the countries in Africa have achieved gender parity in primary school. And as of 2012, on the ratio of girls to boys in primary, secondary, and tertiary education, Africa is only surpassed by the performance of Southern Asia. Maternal mortality fell from 745 deaths per 100,000 live births in 1990 to 429 in 2010, representing a 42% reduction. We also see improvements in the HIV incidence among adult women, which declined from 0.72% to 0.49 and from 5.2% to 3.2 among young women. And Africa, at the moment, we have an average of 21% of women in national parliaments. We see a lot of progress in different frames, including the fact that, the region has cut by half discriminatory laws and doubled the percentage of women landholders from 7% in 1990 to 15% in 2012. It is still very low and unacceptable, though. It is widely recognized that women's equal participation in decision-making is a sine qua non for women's interests to be taken into account and for women's perspectives to be incorporated into government policies and programs. Evidence shows that elected women in Africa have significantly contributed to exposing gender-based injustice, and in doing so, triggering responses, particularly legislation on elimination of violence against women and girls, family laws, property, inheritance and land rights, and more investment in girls' education. Despite the above achievements, structural barriers continue to constrain women's potential to drive Africa's economic growth, peace, and sustainable development. I will not go into the details because we all have the figures. And we see that women continue to be largely underrepresented at most levels of leadership. Only 9 countries in sub-Saharan Africa have achieved the 30% threshold. At this point, I would like to wish or to congratulate the Eritrean government and also the National Union of Eritrean Women for the innovative solutions they have made in giving women equal access to land. I mean, this is something that is very difficult in sub-Saharan Africa, and we look forward to hearing your experience on this matter. And also, you have ensured girls' education through a complementary and nomadic education. Again, those are innovative solutions that we would like to hear more about. I would also like to congratulate you for passing a law that bans FGM and particularly using a multi-sectoral approach to enforce it. I think the major finding of Beijing +20 review is that there are many laws that exist, but implementation is difficult. And the experience that Eritrea has in working with various ministries across the board, with community leaders, in enforcing this law is very much appreciated. You have actually demonstrated the he for she approach, which we are promoting as UN Women to engage the traditional and community leaders in addressing these very difficult issues. We cannot address them alone. And this success should really inform our strategies in Africa as we embark on implementing the post-2015 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Ambassador, you have also mentioned that 60% of the land is filled with the natural resources. We would like to see that women are participants and fully benefit from those resources, and that they are engaged not only in receiving the benefits or receiving the tax revenues from that, but as business owners, as employees at all levels, including corporate board levels, and as suppliers across the extractive value chain. The experience that we are seeing in Eritrea actually illustrates the importance of addressing structural factors that restrict progress on gender equality and women's empowerment. The marking of 2015 by the African Union as the Year on Women's Empowerment and Development gives us an opportunity to initiate accelerated and irreversible action. We should not let this opportunity pass. As you know, we're already halfway through the decade for women's empowerment, and we keep asking ourselves what has happened in the last 5 years and what are we going to do in the next 5 years. So we see 2015 as the point where we must start engaging in irreversible action to push this agenda forward. We look forward very much to hearing your experiences. Thank you very much for your attention.
Sir Christine, and now I'll give the floor to Taka Tesfamical, and she's the president of the National Union of Eritrean Women. Not only she's the president, she earned it. She was in the front line, a combatant, 1979, 78. She's correcting me. So she has proven herself through the hardship, through dedication. She not only served in the front line, she did also serve in what we call revolutionary school as one of the teachers. Revolutionary school is a school which was a boarding school. Don't look at the revolutionary. It was an underground with 4,000 students in a boarding school because there was air raid constant during the liberation struggle. So without further ado, she would be talking and enlightening the audience. Thank you.
Christine Musisi, Regional Director for East and South Africa, UN Women. Co-facilitators, Ambassador Girma, PR of Eritrea, and Ms. Christine Otomi, UN Country Representative for Eritrea. Panelists, distinguished delegate and guests. I bring you greetings from all women in Eritrea, and I am deeply honored to address you in my capacity as President of the National Union of Eritrean Women on a side event which aims to highlight Eritrea's achievement and experience in the empowerment of women. The history of the Eritrean women is one of the struggle and sacrifice, as well as success. For the last few weeks, I have been attending various functions both at home and abroad on the occasion of the 35th anniversary of the National Union of Eritrean Women. I am humbled by the Eritrean women's energy and enthusiasm inside and outside the country to continue their cause for equality. The National Union of Eritrean Women is a national body established in 1979 during Eritrean people's struggle for self-determination and independence. 35 years ago, during our armed struggle, our motto and guidance principle was Yika'alo and Khawuni, which means, yes, I can, and yes, we can. Even today, our motto remains the same. We should never kneel down to sustain our struggle and to affirm our equality. No matter what, we must remain resolute and determined to advance what we are set out to achieve. Co-chairs, the National Union of Eritrean Women, which is a grassroots civil society organization with over 300,000 of members both inside and outside the country, is mandated by the government to act as a national missionary to promote gender equality. To effective change, the National Union of Eritrean Women has been closely working with government, ministries, and institutions, civil society organizations, United Nations, and other international partners. Regional and international instruments such as CRC and CEDAW are implemented. A few weeks ago in Geneva, I presented Eritrea's National Periodic Report to commit on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. The National Union has also taken stock of the achievement and challenges in implementing of the Beijing Plus 20 and have shared it with the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa and the UN Women. Co-chairs, as my colleague Tsaga is going to present in detail the achievement and the experience of, will allow me to conduct by taking this opportunity that women in Eritrea are further challenged by the occupation of sovereignty, Eritrea territory, and unjust sanction imposed on the country. These two unwarranted situations continue to embed and infringe on the full enjoyment of women and regardless rights and on the development effort of the country. This constitutes and deny of the people's right to peace and security as well as right to development. It has to be challenged and rejected by all peace-loving people and advocate of the past 2015 development agenda that aspires to leave no one behind. Thank you for your attention. Awat Hafash.
Now I give to the next speaker, Ms. Raquel Lagunas. I hope I have pronounced your name correctly. Policy Advisor on Gender Mainstreaming, UNDP, BPPS, Solidarity and Goodwill Message, and the floor is yours, Madam.
To all of you, good morning to the Ambassador, to the President of the National Union of Eritrean Women, good morning to the Director of Social Services, also to my colleagues from UN Women, from UFPA, and to all of you. Well, I wanted to first of all join UN Women in commending the Eritrean Union of Women for the long-term and sustained commitment to women's empowerment and to gender equality. And I was reading a lot about your organization, and I must say that I was very impressed because of the big constituency that you have, rooted in communities. And I was reflecting and thinking this gives you the legitimacy to make the changes in the country that you are making and pushing, and this is your power. The legitimacy that you have, and because you know very well which are women's needs in the day-to-day basis. And we wanted to commend you for your good work. I represent here an organization that has presence in more than 177 countries and territories, and we try really seriously to help countries to build a better future. And for us, I think as well as for our colleagues from the government of Eritrea, as well as the Eritrean Women's Union, we believe that this future includes, and it should include, the empowerment of women and gender equality. What does it mean for UNDP gender equality? For us, gender equality is not only a matter of numbers, of statistics, of increasing participation of women in all the spheres of society, that of course, yes, it's also a matter of putting at the center of the discussion the distribution of power. And I think that you have been doing that for many, many years in your country, for almost 1 decade. We also believe that gender equality is about transforming our partnership relationship between men and women. And gender equality is also not only about that, it's also about sustainable development. We are now much more aware than ever that gender equality is fundamental to achieve sustainability and peace. And I think that you also have a very, very good and interesting experience to share with us here about how fundamental is gender equality and the role of women in peace-building processes. We truly believe that no one should be denied the opportunity to live the lives that we wanted to live as women, as men, as boys, as girls. And it is at the core of our mandate, of UNDP's mandate, to integrate gender equality and empowerment of women in every intervention. We share, lucky us, we share these values with many, many of our partners all over the world. In 2014, we have supporting women's economic empowerment in 70 countries. When we start talking about democratic governance, UNDP contributed always through our partners to increase participation of women in decision-making processes in around 108 countries. We also address gender-based violence. It is a very, very important priority for us, and at least 50% of our country offices are supporting programs to eradicate violence against women. We contribute also to ensure that women are having better access to basic services, and we also work to ensure that women are participating and at the forefront of negotiations on climate change and national plans, and as well as any disaster risk reduction policy and national program. And of course, as you know, here, UNDP is also committed to bringing women in peace processes. But we cannot make anything without our partners, and that's the main message that I wanted to share today here with you. Our partnership with Eritrea, and in particular with the National Union of Women from Eritrea, is a long-term one, a very good one. And we wanted to highlight that together we have been able to support women's economic empowerment as well as the integration of gender in national ministries, having you at the forefront of this process. UNDP would like to one more time congratulate all of you and join my colleague from UN Women in the progress that you made. It is really impressive. When we come and talk about education, how you were able to increase admission and enrollment rates, when we talk about maternal mortality, the decrease also of rates, the review of discriminatory laws, all the framework, your constitution, the land tenure, constitutional reform, legislative changes, as well as the fighting against female genital mutilation, or the law approving a quota in the National Assembly. We know that the challenges are big ones, and my colleague were highlighting many of them, but we think that sometimes we should celebrate. I think this is the time, and this kind of a space that has a global relevance is the time to reflect about lessons learned, about efforts done, and also to celebrate the gains. I'm not saying we are going to sleep, and UNDP would like to encourage you to keep going, to sustain the effort, and further invest on what is worthwhile. And what is worthwhile here is rights, is justice, and is freedom by any means for women of Eritrea. Today, we know that countries with greater levels of gender equality protect better development ones. We know that. And as Helen Clark, the administrator of UNDP, highlighted a few days ago, and this is a combination of Helen Clark and Hillary Clinton, she was saying, UNDP believes that gender equality is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do. Basic arithmetic tells us that if all members of society are equally empowered to contribute, the sum of their efforts will be far greater than if whole groups like women, half of the humanity, I must say, do not enjoy equal opportunities. As also my colleague from UN Women said, post-2015 and 2015 is a big year for global development. And it must be a big year also for gender equality too. What we would like to see as UNDP is a new sustainable development agenda, universal and transformational for women too. The post-15 agenda is the opportunity to finish the unfinished business of Beijing and the unfinished business of MDGs. As we are still a long way from achieving the goals that we are looking for to achieve, UNDP would like to express here one more time our deep appreciation for our partnership with the government of Eritrea and with the National Union of Eritrean Women, and say that we are here committed to do our best, to do our part together with you, to bring the empowerment of Eritrean women back to the center of human and sustainable development, back to the center of our main goal, that is finally freedom for all. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to summarize the three speakers' intervention because they were very clear and precise to the point, and in the spirit of saving time. And I'm a strong believer in equal gender equality. So now I give the chairmanship to my sister, Christine. So,
Irma, for giving me the time to now lead the next session, the technical part. And you must thank Dan Odalo, because without him, you are going to be a minority on this high table. But yeah, so Your Excellency and Madam Chairperson of NUEW, Christine Musisi, my dear friend and colleague from UN Women, and Raquel, and Saga and Dan, all of you, thank you for being here. But thank you for everyone who is around. I can see that there is a whole big appetite for listening stories from Eritrea. I wish we had got even a bigger room. But thank you to, I see many other UN colleagues around supporting in solidarity. And thank you very much for being here. So on behalf of the UNCT, the UN country team in Eritrea, I would like to thank the government and NUEW for taking the initiative to organize this. We are actually only here in support, but this whole thing was organized by the team themselves, and we are here only in solidarity and in support. And also, this is the second time we are organizing a side event and a big occasion. Last year we did the same, mentioning the MDGs on health. We had a similar side event and we worked together. So this particular event is taking place here at a good time when you are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Beijing Platform of Action. And the Beijing Declaration was soon after the independence of Eritrea, so there is quite a lot to talk since then. The UN has collaborated with the government, has been mentioned since a long time. I'm not going to go through some of the interesting achievements, but Dan, who is the UN colleague, will be talking more about a UN perspective of a partner on the ground, and we'll tackle more of that. So, but this is a very good opportunity to really showcase achievements, to talk about challenges, but to also, as the chairperson and all of you say, to celebrate what we have achieved so far. So I take this opportunity to say that as a UN country team, we are committed to continuing to supporting. And I also want to say that some of the things the Eritrean people are so modest, they will not say, but maybe Dan will highlight much more. But we've seen that much of the things do take place because the Eritrean people really know how to use the few resources for more, and to account for resources. So with our projects as the UN, we see value for money, but also the participation of the people at the community level, and especially the women. We've seen that we may not celebrate so much how many ministers in cabinet, but when you go to the communities and you see the committees for water, the committees on FGM, the committees on all the local committees from the district level and so on, the majority are women. So I think because much of the work happens at that level, that's the difference between maybe Eritrea and some other countries, how their measurement of women leadership is not how many women members of parliament. It is also important, and they are also trying on that end, but they first begin by seeing how many women are actually leaders at the community levels and the impact of that leadership. So without taking much ado, I would like to introduce the people who are going to be presenting in this second session. And we will begin by Ms. Tsaga Game, who is the DG in the Ministry of Social Affairs, but also a very strong member of the National Union of Eritrean Women, a very good expert on gender. She has just completed her gender studies supported by UNDP, master's in gender. So, but she's also like a natural activist in this area. So we will hear from her giving us a presentation. And also we are going to hear from a very good friend of, or can I say very important advocate for gender equality and practically doing it on the ground, Dr. Dan Odalo, the UNFPA representative, giving us the perspective of a partner, the UN on women's empowerment in Eritrea. I know that she will talk a lot, he will talk about a lot about UNFPA's work, but only not UNFPA's work. He's representing the UNCT on this panel, so he's going to say a bit also about other UN involvement on the ground. But I should say that specifically for UNFPA, we pride on the work they do in maternal health, focused on the health of women and their welfare, but also all other areas related to understanding actually the rights and the issues around women, especially in gathering data. You know, we will not know how many women are benefiting from that or not benefiting that if we don't do the assessments, if we don't do the different data gathering. And I can tell you from my own country, I come from Rwanda, if there is any survey that is not gender desegregated according to gender, it is null and void. It is thrown out of the window. So it is like a national policy that every data analysis must show, must analyze according, show figures, men and women, girls and boys. If not, as a principle, it is not an assessment, it's not approved by cabinet. So we see similar trends. Maybe it's not as, as harsh as Rwanda, but we see similar trends that in Eritrea, numbers are so important, and the trend is that without gender desegregated data, you will not understand the society, and therefore you will not plan properly. UNFPA is at the forefront of this, with together all as a UN group, but of course the statistics office of Eritrea supporting us, but also on other things of girls empowerment and youth development and stuff like that. So without taking much time, may I now call upon Mr. Gar to give us quickly a few. Yeah, she was a liberation fighter also, I hear. Most of these women and their position on the table. So, Mr. Gar, please quickly the highlights of some of the achievements.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to use PowerPoint presentation. Eritrea is traditionally a patriarchal society. During the armed struggle for independence, 30% of the combatants were women, and they established the National Union of Eritrean Women in 1979. After independence, the National Union of Eritrean Women has been studiously working to ensure gender equality in political, economic, and socio-cultural spheres. Yeah. Enhance societal awareness, strengthen the influence of women, gender mainstreaming in all sectors of the society, contribute to regional peace and development, assist in implementing Eritrea's international commitment. Today we are here to share Eritrea's experience in 5 areas, naming economic empowerment, women's health, women and girl education, violence against women, and decision making. To start with economic empowerment, one of the areas we have is land ownership. Traditionally, women were not entitled to own or inherit land. Proclamation 5894 has granted them the right to own land. The National Union of Eritrean Women has trained women legal officers to ensure land ownership proclamation is effectively implemented. So this was the innovation we did in Eritrea, and after training, we involved them in the land distribution committees. From 2009 to 2012, more than 32% was allocated for women-headed families. Other area of economic empowerment is microcredit. To date, over 50,000 women benefited from this program. Revolving fund is over $28 million US. Indirect beneficiaries are around 500,000. Comparing to the population of Eritrea is very great. The National Union of Eritrean Women used skills training as one way of economic empowerment. It supports skills development such as weaving, handcraft, auto mechanic, computer skills are some of the successful training programs. For example, let's take the weaving. 15 years back, it was men's work. 10 years back, it was imported. After training, now it is locally produced. It is a good means of income. At this time, the biggest textile factory in Eritrea is owned and managed by a woman. Another area is environmental protection. Traditional Eritrean stoves consume firewood and emit too much smoke. They are hazardous to women's health and contribute to environmental degradation. To mitigate these damages, the Adhanat stove was invented. The invented stove is called Adhanat. The innovation was to change the traditional stove to smokeless stove. It was a very successful innovation as it saves women's health. It saves time of fetching wood. When they get time, they have opportunity to go to school or to participate in different development programs. And they created job because they are able to produce it locally and they are able to sell. And this is one of the means of income. It has also an economic impact as it saves domestic energy, cuts electricity, saves environment from smoke pollution. It is internationally patented. So far, it got 5 awards. The Ashdown Award, the Japan Expo, Tech Museum Awards, Bill Gates Award, Green Apple Award. This is how it looks, the Adhanat smokeless stove. Now let me take you to our experience in health. Eritrea is one of the African countries to achieve the 3 health MDGs. Eritrean women had significant role in achieving these MDGs. The establishment of peer women malaria, peer women HIV, AIDS, and other peers on different health issues. For example, malaria group, they raise awareness of their community, as we can see from the picture. Insecticide bed nets and they distribute the bed nets and cover stagnant water. As we know, stagnant water is very comfortable for mosquitoes, so they mobilize their respective communities and they cover it. Moreover, in minimizing maternal deaths, waiting delivery homes are established in the remote villages. Traditional birth attendants are trained and equipped with appropriate medical instruments. Nowadays, TBAs are active health promoters. High coverage of immunization is in place, making Eritrea measles and polio-free country. Next, experience on education. In Eritrea, education is free at all levels. But in rural areas, girls did not enjoy this opportunity because of the domestic work such as fetching of water. Traditionally, women fetch water carrying on their back, as we can see in the picture. Culturally, boys are not allowed to do it. To solve these problems, innovative and incentive-oriented projects are introduced. One of the innovative projects was the Donkey and the Canvas project. Women in rural areas are provided with a donkey and canvas water tank. Over 13,000 families own donkeys, means that over 20,000 girls were able to go to school. The project has contributed in changing gender roles, as boys have started sharing the task of fetching water. Then boys and girls go together to school. Girls who commute long distance to school are given bicycles for free. Sanitary pads are supplied free of charge to prevent school absenteeism. The sanitary pads factory in Eritrea is owned by the National Union of Eritrean Women. And special awards is given to outstanding girl students. Boarding schools are established in remote areas, and affirmative action at tertiary level is introduced. We can see from the pictures related to our projects. The forest area is violence against women. Underage marriage is legally banned. In 2007, FGM was legally abolished and criminalized. Under the leadership of the National Union of Eritrean Women, the law was broadly and extensively discussed by all sectors of the society, including religious leaders and community elders. Alternative sources of income for practitioners of FGM was put in place. The FGM that affected 95% of girls in 1995 today has dropped to the 12% for ages 5 and under. Last but not least, decision making. Ministers of Justice, Health, and Tourism are women. This constitutes 18% of the ministerial post. Out of 6 governors, 1 is woman. Through affirmative action in all community courts, at least 1 of the 3 judges is a woman. 30% of the national and the local assemblies, as well as administrative organs, is allocated to women. Like in many traditional societies, women in Eritrea face several challenges. To mention some, discriminatory patriarchal attitudes and practices, limited number of professional women in all sectors, the low-level technological and infrastructural development of the country, and the limited financial resources. Our key experience are, number 1, a strong grassroots women organization. The National Union of Eritrean Women is stretched from the national level to the village level, so members of the National Union are available everywhere. Every part of Eritrea, you can find the women group in every village. Number 2, strong political commitment of the government and the leadership. Number 3, extensive involvement of the general population, including community elders and the religious leaders. Number 4, effective coordination among National Union of Eritrean Women, government and the private institutions. Number 5, partnership with international institutions and civil society organizations. Finally, on the occasion of this event, I would like to appreciate all development partners, specifically UN agencies in Eritrea, for their support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Keep that in mind as you prepare for your questions and other messages. Before session, may I ask Dr. Dan Odalo, the UNFPA representative in Eritrea, to give us the perspective of a partner, a UN partner on women's empowerment in Eritrea.
My colleagues from the UN, NUEW chairperson, Ms. Tekle Mikhail, and my colleague and friend, Tsega, all protocols observed, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say something about the partner's perspective of working in Eritrea with the National Union of Eritrean Women and also the government. Colleagues, almost 7 months ago, we gathered here to listen to the remarkable achievements that Eritrea had taken towards the health-related MDGs. We heard clearly about MDG 4, 5, and 6, and also recognized that Eritrea was only among the few countries globally that was actually on track to achieving these MDGs. We also heard during that event that actually the driving force behind this was a very prudent use of both financial and human resources, while also maximizing the social capital that exists in that country. Today, again, we have confirmed from the presentation that has just taken place of the very, very innovative and huge strides that the country is taking with respect to gender empowerment, especially through those interventions that go directly in raising the standards and life of the ordinary Eritrean woman. I'm here to say that these achievements need not only be applauded, but also be supported at every opportunity. And I agree with Lugana when she said that, in fact, gender equality is a prerequisite for anything that we plan for in today's world. The United Nations family in Eritrea has worked with the government for a long time. In fact, all the way from independence, we had two UNDAFs, UNDAF 1 and 2. We now have a specific cooperation strategic plan in place, and this actually has guided the work that we do in Eritrea. Under the current agreement, the United Nations and the government of Eritrea has agreed on two specific outcomes, both of which directly relate to the empowerment and the welfare of women. We have a specific outcome on the addressing issues of violence against women, and we also have a specific outcome on advocacy and the institutionalization of women issues within governance and the economic development agenda of the country. Through these two outcomes, Excellency, we have programmed almost 1.8 million in 2013 to be supportive of these programs. And the results that we have had today is not surprising, because it has been a joint effort between the government, the National Union of Eritrean Women, and the UN. So, taking all this into account, what really has been the experience of the partners on the ground? First of all, I want to support the conclusion of my colleagues 1 year ago, that the overriding factor has been the very supportive policy atmosphere for gender programming. This is not surprising, especially when one considers the development philosophy that has been adopted by the country, which is deeply rooted in the principle of social justice. So we see that actually what we are implementing is very much a philosophy that the government itself is fully behind, coined and managed by the government through the National Union of Eritrean Women. That said, however, Madam Chair and Excellency, Ambassador, let me say three things that have really been the experience on the ground. First and foremost has been the very effective partnerships that we have had between the government, the UN system, and the National Union of Eritrean Women. These partnerships have been negotiated very carefully based on clear outcomes that are clearly documented and have been worked upon almost to the last full stop, so to speak. The second thing has been the broad-based participation that NUEW has been able to ensure at the community level. As you know, if you take health, for example, the approach is the public health approach to providing health services. And this can only happen when you have strong community-based participation at the ground. I think NUEW, more than any organization that I know that we have worked with, has probably the most effective community participation at the ground. We have just heard about the malaria program, the FGM program, the maternity waiting home initiatives. All these initiatives are actually run on the ground by communities themselves, with the participation, of course, with the support of NUEW. The third one has been a very high level of accountability. This is perhaps, and I was talking to the ambassador this morning, I told him, this is probably the only country where you can go sleeping without worrying too much what will happen to your resources. Because once you agree on those resources, it will be accounted for. And we are very proud of the fact that we have a partner on the ground on whom you can rely fully to account for the funds and the programs that have been agreed upon. This has really been a pleasure to work with. So moving ahead, and we can continue, saying a lot of good things about the experiences on the ground. But moving ahead, colleagues, I think it is important to recognize that actually to realize equality for women and to move an effective gender program for Eritrea, there are still quite a lot of challenges that one has to recognize. The first one that I would like to mention here is the skills gap that exists across the board among women. We realize actually that the skills that most women need in order to be able to articulate or to participate effectively in economic, social, or health activities is still very, very wide. And this is one area in which I think we really need to continue working very, very putting in a lot of effort, because the skills level that will be needed now and in the future really are going to be very different from what exists in the country today. The second thing is that we continue to be seriously challenged by very low level of resources available to the country. The SPCF, the Strategic Partnership Framework, upon which we have negotiated our support for the country, was budgeted at about 190. And at that time, we only had about 40 million. So the resource gap is very, very wide. And we continue to appeal to partners to recognize that actually we should be rewarding rather than punishing the country for this. At this juncture, colleagues, I think it would be completely remiss of me not to mention the fact that the restrictions that have been placed on Eritrea are actually counterintuitive to some of the things that we are trying to achieve. We cannot talk about a post-15 development agenda while we are tying the hands of this country to mobilize and realize resources that are necessary to achieve that goal. And whether you look at it in terms of regional security or whether we look at it in terms of poverty reduction at the community level, I think it's important to recognize that these restrictions are really not serving any purpose other than restricting the work that is possible to be seen in this country. We also continue to be challenged. Mention was made about data and how we are articulating data. We continue to be challenged by this issue of gender desegregated data. And I think part of the discussions that we will be having with both the government and NUEW is really to institute a system that allows us to do better analysis of the data that is available. Last but not least, allow me just 1 minute to say something that UNFPA has been advocating, and I think it is important to mention it here. As you all know, we are now advocating for countries to seriously look at what is the potential for the demographic dividend that is available for these countries if only they can invest in certain things or adopt certain policies that allow for the country to maximize on the potential of its population. The demographic dividend argument actually is that a reduction in fertility with equal investment in equipping young people with the skills that they need, eventually balance out, and the country begins to benefit from the quality of the population that it has. If you take everything in totality, Eritrea has a great potential for demographic dividend if only some of these policy imperatives can be put in place. And I know that we are working with government to begin looking at how to increase the potential of young people, especially young girls, because of the potential they have. And these are the things that we are putting in place in order to make sure that we can move. So I will stop here and only to say that our experience in Eritrea is a very good one. It is a healthy one. It is actually a very fruitful one. And we invite you to come and see for yourselves the work that is being achieved in that country. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dan. Actually, there are some the 10 years of women. There's another one they didn't bring for you. I don't know why, but the UN work. Yeah, there's this one, the specific one on for this event. But there's another book also on the UN work. 15 members from the COMESA came. At that time, the UN was represented by UNECA, by Toko. And UN Women was on the way actually, and then I don't know what happened, but somehow we sent the report. At that time, we were able to listen from His Excellency the President, meeting these delegates and committing again to the gender equality, in which he said it's really, they earned this, and the space is there for them, and therefore the sky is the limit. So with these few remarks, may I invite questions, answers, additions, and congratulatory messages, anything you want to say on this occasion to the team here. Thank you very much. Where you come from, and then you make a comment.
Thank you. My name is Beth Mutunga from Kenya. I'm really impressed by what women in Eritrea are doing, and thank you for the presentation. Mine is very simple. I'm concerned because I've seen the civil society organizations in Eritrea are doing very well in empowering women. I would like to know whether the civil society organization, as the president presented, whether they are included in the government budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Wezi Wetusi. I come from South Africa. I must also congratulate you for the progress you've made in your country. It's really impressive. We are a country that is also trying to do our best, is South Africa. But what I'm interested in, because there's this general problem all over, violence against women, the He for She program, can you please unpack it for us? I'm really interested so that we can take it back to South Africa.
My name is Phyllis Polong from Kenya. I'm from Maendeleo Wanawake organization, which when I heard you we are almost sisters, but different names. It's very encouraging to hear what you have said. And we have learned as an organization some of those things that we can do for the women on the ground, at the ground level. My question is about, you talked about TBS, traditional birth attendants, which we also do have. And I wanted to ask whether women then, do they give birth in hospitals? What do you do? Because our experience, my experience in the community that I come from is the TBS become empowered and women don't go again to give birth in the hospitals. I don't know what you people, whether we can learn from you, so that, because that's now the problem that came because of empowering the TBS.
Thank you. I'm Emilia Gatto. I'm first counselor at the Italian mission. And first of all, thank you very much for organizing this a very interesting event. And thank you for inviting me. I was happy to come, especially in a listening and learning mode. And I have to say that I learned a lot. As you may know, Italy has a very strong and special relation to Eritrea, and me too. I have to say, I'm impressed of all the progresses. Especially, I was interested in FGM. You know, that you had such a incredible, reduction in so little time. And if you have the time, I would be interested to know a little bit more about that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My name is Cookie Edwards from South Africa. I also wanted to find out more about the He for She program, but there was something that came up on the presentation, I think from Mrs. Garam, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your surname right, on the FGM. You said that something, correct me if I'm wrong, because the slide went so fast, alternative income was found for the doctors that practice FGM. So I was quite curious to know what were the alternative outcomes. There was something on the slide there. So what alternative income is being provided for doctors if their focus was so much on FGM? So what is the alternative? Thank you.
I want to commend my sisters for that very good presentation. We are actually very much challenged considering the achievement so far. My question is on women in decision making. You've said as a government, I think 30% is reserved for women in decision making. My question is there goodwill from the government? You can have the laws even in terms of FGM. In Kenya, we have a similar scenario where we have laws against FGM, but we still have politicians who take advantage and they turn against the same law that they've created. What is your position in that?
For your interest. The first question is whether the civil society organization is supported by the government. The National Union of Eritrean Women is one of the civil society organizations. In Eritrea, this organization has its own historical background. As we have mentioned in the introduction, and as Madam Taka has mentioned, it was established at the heart of the struggle, during the struggle time. So after independence, it was so easy and comfortable, conducive environment created the government, because the government bodies are themselves also part of the struggle. So this historical background makes change with other civil society organizations we can see in other countries. So the National Union of Eritrean Women, right after independence in 1992, decided that to be, women ourselves decided to be an independent organization, and we consider it as a civil society organization. So because of this, the government, whether when we want support from the government, we provide projects and we get budget from that. Otherwise, the National Union of Eritrean Women is independent, and the support is we get support from the development partners, and we manage ourselves. This means we are not, the government also mandated the National Union of Eritrean Women to be a woman machinery in Eritrea. So we have very comfortable and conducive environment and access to the government bodies to, to discuss or to be involved in the developing programs. I think the second question is about TBAs. TBAs are worked a lot in the remote areas where there is no access of health facilities. As I mentioned, they were equipped and they worked a lot. And for transportation problem, also the National Union of Eritrean Women supported them, donkeys, so they can go and do that. Nowadays in Eritrea, many health facilities and hospitals are built. So at this time, the TBAs are changed as health promoters, encourage the pregnant women to go to the health facilities and to use them. And in relation to FGM also, the TBAs were some of the circumcisers, and we changed their mind and they became as campaigners. And we involved them also in our income generation activities. That was the means of income for those FGM is their means of income. We involve them in the microcredit program, in the skills training, and let them their income generation from another way. Yeah, thank you.
I'm not the co-chair now. I'm just trying to answer the he for she issue. And as Tsega said, in the liberation struggle, there was one motto, very important motto. No, there were two important. One is liberate the land and the people. The people meaning women and men. The traditional society has to be challenged. So you have to liberate his mentality, his backward mentality. So equality through equal participation was also introduced as a motto. Some, even there was an uphill fight, some thought, why are we celebrating March 8? There was a debate among the male fighters. And I remember, was asking a question. He said, women are not equal to me, he said, when we said equality to equal participation. And I said, why do you say that? Was a debate, and then he said, she cannot carry what I carry, and she cannot jump as much as I jump. That was his logic. So he has to be liberated. So one of our comrades said to him, in that case, is that your logic? He said, yes. Or in that case, you cannot do what she does. She gives birth, you cannot give birth, he said. First, politely, he put it. But I give you another one. If you carry 60 kilos, the donkey carries 100 kilos. So the donkey is better than you, he said. And then he said again, if you can jump, better than the she, then the horse can jump better than you, so you are less than the horse. So the guy just started retreating. So the whole concept of equality through equal participation, the he for she, as she said, is inculcated in every liberation fighter. That was a plus. It was not an issue of women's fight. And don't mess up with Eritrean women. They have the right, they have the backing of the he also. The he is also liberated. So the liberation mentality is not simply a liberation. So the he for she, the she for he is embedded in the psyche of almost every Eritrean, in schools, in every institutions. That maybe, that's the answer I just want to intervene. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just add to the he for she that it is not a program, it is an approach and a way of life, recognizing the role of men and boys in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. So this is a perfect example.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that this whole argument around traditional birth attendance, what shouldn't disappear in the case of Eritrea is the role that the community-based maternity waiting homes have played in linking both, the expectant mother and the TBA into the health system. We have a very elaborate and innovative maternity waiting home system, which are community-based, actually run by the communities themselves. And the traditional birth attendant's role really in that area is not so much as retaining the woman, but making sure that they have a link directly to a health facility within the context of either emergency obstetric care or just normal, birth when time comes. So the traditional birth attendant is not a lonely person out in the village there alone. There is a whole system that supports her role, including the maternity waiting homes that also, we work very closely with government to support. Thank you very much.
Also, I could say that the WHO representative just been to and actually UNFPA to a country-wide tour while they were doing the health sector review for this period. And he came with very interesting comments from the field, because in one of the maternity waiting homes, he saw in one room a man and said, the man in a maternity waiting home, is this man getting a baby or something? And he realized actually this man had come to prepare food for his wife. And it touched him because it means that the concept, even men have recognized the importance of it, and they give but also what really fascinated him is that the UNFP and WHO built this one home. Next to it, the community built another one on themselves. So showing that once they see the benefit of the program, then in their humble way and in their simple way, they try to replicate it. So I think it was very good. The same with the fistula program, because also there's a big problem of fistula, and then there's a certain center where they come. There's not very many doctors who are very, but now women have known that this is an area where they can go. And actually those are some of the reasons we say we need more resources to do more of what can be done, because now the society is already sensitized to what they can benefit from some of these programs. And it looks like for women, especially when they learn that this thing is beneficial, it just becomes a way of life. If they can take their kid for immunization and that kid won't have measles, you don't have to tell them next time that do this. You know, if a woman goes to a maternity waiting home, last year the baby died and this time the baby survives, it will be like automatic. And also the women social workers, and they are doing these things sometimes voluntarily, but they are very effective.
Well, I wish we had enough time, but there is a pressure of time. Thank you for everybody for coming, and I thank all the participants, the panelists, the guests. Thank you, everybody. We will not fail you. We shall overcome, as Martin Luther King said. Thank you very much.